Well, welcome to Mary Walter Radio, our first night on Tuesdays. Yes, I'm so excited to be here with you. I was not paying attention when we when we were ready to go. I was texting Mike Opelka, and so I blame you, Mike, for me not looking up and seeing that we had run out of the clock of the timer. So, welcome everybody. Appreciate you joining me. James is not here. It seems that Comcast once again is not working. I was on WPHT yesterday and today out in Philadelphia, and doing the show from home and connecting via Comrex unit, which you use the internet. And Comcast went down on Monday, and I was boom off the air. That was it. They were like, okay, see ya. It's like, all right, we'll try again tomorrow. So apparently they're still having problems, and James lives in that area. He lives near Philly, so I guess he's having problems, and so he will not be here tonight, so we will miss him. So yeah, so as you know, if you had followed the podcast in the past, on Tuesday nights we did Life with Mary Walter, which was a non-political podcast, and on Thursdays we did a political podcast. And I have guests coming on in the next couple of weeks, not this week, but starting next week. We're going to have a bunch of guests week after week, and some of them, like, I didn't know whether to put them in the political one or the not political one. And then I was just like, you know what, heck, it's my podcast and do whatever I damn well please. So, why not? Why can't we just talk about everything? And let's just do it one night. James had a real hard time getting here on Thursdays, and Thursdays a lot of times super busy. So you're heading into the weekend. So we decided to move everything to Tuesday. So here we are. So thank you for joining me. So you notice we use the colors of Live with Mary Walter. We use the name Mary Walter Radio. So they kind of like mashed up and had a baby, the two podcasts. And here we are. Thank you to EB for doing all of the graphics. He is a demon and he did it all, and he's such a sweetie. And I am so happy, so thankful for him and his amazing son, Zach, who watches the podcasts over and over. And so thank you, Zach. We appreciate you for doing that. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcasts. That's super important. And then after the show, I will download the audio onto Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you just look for Mary Walter Radio and it should come up. I have to load up some new graphics, but it should come right up. So thank you. All right, let's see who's here. Now, if you're new to the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, if you leave a comment, I can bring it up and put it on the screen for us so everybody can see it. If you're on Getter, I can't do that, so I have to read them from Getter. So let's start with YouTube. And if you're new to the podcast, we have some regulars, which are amazing people. And by the way, one of them is Pete. Pete sends me great topics, so thank you for that, Pete. I really appreciate you. I hope you know that. So I've always got to thank everybody. And they have like a little contest to see who can get in first. And this week it was Ron. Ron was in first, 7:05. And then here's Pete at 7:10. Bill at 7:10. I want to see your pretty eyes tonight. Oh, thank you. See the big the big bruise is gone. So we're good. We're good. Nice new graphics. Yeah, that's EB. EB Stone, fantastic job. Great guy. If you ever need anybody for graphic design, he's your dude. So hit me up and I'll be happy to give you all of EB's information. Bill, she didn't wear glasses on her morning show gig today. It was broadcast on YouTube and she looked fine. Thank you, Pete, for watching. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was one thing. Doing a morning show and they put it on YouTube. So you've got to get out of bed and you're like, I'm all puffy, and I had to do hair and makeup. So this morning I didn't do hair and I didn't do it for this either, but I did makeup. And I'll tell you, only 2 days of a morning show. And as soon as I get off here, I'm taking my makeup off and going to bed. I'm so tired. It was only 2 days of a morning show. And I'm like, oh, morning shows are soul sucking. They really are. Ron notes, yeah, Al is still missing. So if you're new, we have a friend, Al, who's been so supportive of the podcast. He got kicked off of Twitter, like a lifetime ban. To this day, don't know what he did. And he was over on Truth Social and he was really active. And then he like just disappeared. The last I heard, he was supposedly moving to Florida. I have no idea. I know he wasn't the healthiest guy, so like I'm worried about him. And nobody knows where he is. I sent him messages on Truth Social. He never saw the messages, never even like looked at them. So not only did he not respond, but he didn't even look at them. So I hope he's okay. So if anybody hears from Al or sees signs of life, like on any of his social media accounts, please tell him we're worried about him because he was here and then he was gone. So you always worry, I can't help it. Okay, Scott says hello over on Getter. And Ed says, that outfit is adorable. I love casual Mary. I'll take informal any day. Thank you so much. So I have a t-shirt on from my old high school. ERHS East, the Minutemen. There we are, the Minutemen. I've had this on all day, and I have on like comfy pants, and I was cold, so I just had to put a sweatshirt on. So thank you, I appreciate that, Ed. I was not feeling the dress up today at all. So, like I said, day 2 of a morning show, so I was not feeling it. All right, so please, if feel free to leave your comments on either Getter or YouTube, and I will get to them as soon as I can. We have a lot to cover today. I'm really bummed James isn't here because I think there's just so much to cover. But I always love when you chime in as well, obviously. All right, let's go to, of course, the big story of the day with this civil case with E Jean Carroll, who's an author, and she claimed that Trump raped her in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman's. Now, the frightening thing about this is there's a CSI episode that's been making the rounds all over Twitter that word for word is the exact same allegation as E Jean Carroll made. I was always dubious. I'm sorry, but I'm dubious when someone waits decades until the alleged perpetrator is famous or really rich before they come forth with their, horrific tale of trauma. And you can't remember exactly when it happened. You're not even really not quite sure of the year. I tend to have doubts over that. I think we all have had an incident in our life, whether it was an accident or something, and you remember everything about that day, right? You remember the day, you remember the year, you remember the day of the week it was. And I know it affects everyone differently, but not to remember the years where she lost me. And basically the jury found that it was civil, not criminal. So Trump was found guilty of nothing, but held liable. That's the difference. Ed says, oh my gosh, we got flashed. Yeah, Ed, the bar's super low when I just show you my high school t-shirt. That's considered a flashing. So the jury decided that Trump was not liable for rape, but he was liable for what they claim was sexual abuse touching her and defamation. And they awarded her $5 million. Now, obviously, he's going to appeal this. She alleged that Trump raped her at Bergdorf Goodman at the department store across the street from Trump Tower in Manhattan sometime in around 1996. Like she kind of zeroed in on 1996. According to her, they had a chance run-in at the store. Trump was shopping for a gift for what she said was a girl. And she said that he asked her for advice, and they shopped together before he pushed her into a dressing room and assaulted her. I personally find that hard to believe. That's just me. I just find that hard to believe. Scott says, I also heard she did not write anything about the incident in her diary. Yeah, I don't know. That part I did not hear, so I don't know that. Let's see. Trump and his legal team insisted that her allegations are fabricated, and the former president's initial reaction, including an accusation that Carroll was motivated by wanting to sell copies of her book. Now, because he denied, she wound up slapping him with a defamation claim, and he called her, she's crazy, I don't even know who this woman is. So she hits him up for defamation, claiming that his response caused harm to her reputation. And she requested compensatory and punitive damages, as well as an order that he retract his statement. Now, Trump's lawyer, and I heard a lot of criticism of the defense that they put on here in this trial. I'm not a lawyer, but I watch a lot of Judge Judy. Sherry, thank you. Sherry says I look great. Thank you so much. Here we go. Greg, Christine Blasey Ford 2.0. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's exactly where I was going with this, Greg. You read my mind. Christine, I'm sorry, but ever since Christine Blasey Ford, and then there were a couple who came after her, I don't buy it. I'm sorry to say, I don't. When the Democrats parade these women, and they're so happy to parade these women out, I don't buy it. And apparently, from what I read, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the founder of LinkedIn paid her lawyers. He bankrolled this for her. So you got a big Democrat donor bankrolling this for her. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here. Mike Apelko, sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so basically the jury said that he was liable for sexual assault. They don't believe that he raped her, so they didn't find anything that he raped her. But then they held him liable for defaming her because her claim was he defamed her by saying that the rape didn't happen and that she was lying. They found that the rape didn't happen, but still held him liable for defaming her by saying that she was lying. So I'm super confused about that. I don't understand how it could be both. I don't understand. So how could he be held liable for claiming that it didn't happen and she's crazy, etc., and then they find out that it didn't happen, which I would think would support his claims and they wouldn't be seen as defamation. So to me, there's a lot of questions with this. And this is gonna be retried. So I want to ask you as I go through this, how do you think does this hurt him in 24? Especially with independents. Look, I think the Never Trumpers are just going further into their corner, and they're going to use this as like, see, I knew I was right by not voting for Trump. I knew it. I know he's a bad person. He's a criminal. Some people all over Twitter, now he's a criminal. Now he's a sex offender. I'm like, moron. It's a civil trial. If this were a criminal trial, she would have had to have proven that he was in Bergdorf's on that day. She would have had to remember which day it was. And she would have had to have proven that he was actually in Bergdorf's on that day. And she would have had to have brought forth witnesses. There would have been a lot more. The standard is much higher to prove. So it's not criminal. He wasn't found guilty of anything. He was found liable, but not guilty. I feel like I should give out a phone number, but I don't have a phone number out to give because I don't make any money on the show, so I can't afford a special phone line. He should countersue for defamation, Sherry says. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because she claimed that he raped her. And they said he didn't rape her. So I think he should sue her for defamation for saying that he's a rapist, because all these people on Twitter are saying that now. Bill, if she was raped, she would have to remember the exact date and time. Yeah, she would have had to remember a lot more than sometime in the 90s. And then she kind of narrowed, brought it home. But she apparently brought a lot of witnesses. Trump didn't testify. Trump didn't go to the court. And Trump didn't bring any witnesses. Nothing. And, they played the infamous Entertainment Weekly tape with Billy Bush, where he said, and everybody takes Trump's words out of context when he said, grab him. That sentence, he said, if you are rich, women throw themselves at you and they let you do whatever you want, even grab them. And that's what he said. And then when one of her lawyers was asking him about it, he's like, no, she's not my type. He goes, and no offense, you're not my type either. Just no offense. It's just the way it is. She's not my type. I was laughing when he said that. But it's Trump and it's a New York jury. So of course, right? Of course. All right. I would love to see him sue her for defamation. Kind of like how Stormy Daniels sued him, and then he went up suing her back. and I would love to see him do that with her. But does that make it worse for him in 24? Because there's a case out of Georgia. Everything now they're investigating the Live Golf tournament because it's run by Saudi Aramco and they have ties to the Saudi Arabian government and he lets them play at his golf courses. So now they're investigating that. They're going to investigate everything they can about him because they don't want him to run. So I want to know, though, does this hurt him with independence? Because you're going to have Joe Biden or whoever the Democrats prop up there, if there actually is ever a debate. Because if there's Joe Biden, he's not showing up to a debate. He's going to say, oh, well, you're a convicted sex offender. And he's going to say, no, but they're going to constantly bring that up because even if he says it, it's not true. It's still out there. All right. Trump's lawyer, Joe Tacopino, told the jury that Carroll's story is too far-fetched to be believed. And he echoed the claim that she said she made it up to fuel sales of her 2019 memoir. That's one of the things she said Trump defamed her over, that she made this up to sell more books, and argued that she wanted to disparage Trump for political reasons. And I wonder if the Trump team just thought this was so crazy and so nonsensical that it wasn't going to go anywhere. And they were wrong. They were absolutely wrong. Her attorney, Roberta Kaplan, cited excerpts from the Access Hollywood, I said Entertainment Tonight, the Access Hollywood tape from 2005. And then she went on to say, and I think this hurt him, she said, he didn't even bother to show up here in person because he wasn't there for the 2 weeks of the trial. She said, much of what he said in his deposition and in public statements actually supports our side of the case. And it only took them a couple of hours, the jury a couple of hours to come back with this. So he did say the verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. And I think that kind of plays in to his base, right? Like the indictment, his numbers went up because people view it as a political witch hunt. So I wonder if this will play into it as well and help him as well. I don't know. But you can tell me what you think. Just write it in there and I will read it. Okay. In the meantime, there's something going on that if you don't live on the East Coast, you may not know about. And James and I both live in New Jersey, and I live at the Jersey Shore. Not the beach, the Jersey Shore. And the New York Post has an interesting story. And this has been going on for a while, especially locally. It's starting to get more traction nationwide. But there has been, since December, the bodies of these huge whales, some of them endangered, and a lot of dolphins washing up on the beaches. Now, the great thing about it's great that there are more whales and dolphins, and we're getting seals in the winter here now and snowy owls, is because the water is so much cleaner than it's ever been. There's also apparently this bumper crop of Manhattan, they're called, or bunkerfish, that the whales feed off of. So there's been a lot of them around, and you could go to the beach at any given time and you see them as they migrate north or they migrate south, it's so cool. That's something I never saw as a kid at the Jersey Shore. You never saw that because the water was disgusting, but now it's clean. But they're drilling for offshore wind turbines off the coast of New Jersey. And the theory is the reason why so many whales are washing up dead on the beaches in New Jersey and New York and some further up north is because they used sonar to map the bottom of the ocean. And we know that whales navigate by that. What is that? Is it echolocation it's called? I know bats use echolocation, right? So I think that's what whales use, echolocation, but they use a type of sonar. Dolphins do the same thing. And that this is screwing up their navigational system. And they're winding up on the beaches. But here's the weird thing as I go through this story. No, none of these green groups are screaming out about this. Greenpeace is like, no, this has nothing to do with it. No, nothing to do with it. They're fine. Don't worry about it. They're fine. We can afford to lose a couple endangered whales here and there in the name of green energy. Don't worry about it. And that's the part of this that I think is the most egregious. These people are a bunch of freaking hypocrites. Hypocrites. I hate hypocrites. Hypocrites drive me crazy. Have the courage of your convictions to admit when you're wrong and to, stand by what you believe in. And if you truly believe in, people for the ethical treatment of animals, I would think that this would be one of those things that you'd be really outraged about. Yet they're not. And of course, now, because they're not, there's stories about ships that are going out and sinking, blowing up the whale carcasses and sinking them so that they don't wash onto the shores, that people don't know how many of them are dying. I don't know if that's true. It's just out there. I'm just telling you it's out there. So, okay. These towers are 900-foot towers. And the former Greenpeace chief, this guy was head of Greenpeace in Canada and a co-founder of Greenpeace. His name is Patrick Moore. He says that this may be creating what he calls a death zone for whales. He believes that the acoustic systems that's being used by vessels that are surveying the ocean floor harm the mammal's sense of hearing, and it risks their ability to navigate and leads to more dead whales washing up on shore. You have all the way from New England to Long Island to the Jersey Shore, a lot at the Jersey Shore washing up because they're doing a lot of drilling and sonar mapping of the bottom because they're putting this huge wind farm off the coast of New Jersey, which I don't understand, because if anybody saw the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, I don't think they're going to last out there. I could be wrong. I'm not an engineer, but I think one or two good hurricanes, they're going to be done for, and they'll just pollute the bottom of the ocean then. At least 36 large whales have washed up on the East Coast since December 1st. This is according to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They track the death of large species in the Atlantic, including minke whales, humpback whales, bowhead, fins, sei, sperm, and blue North Atlantic right whales. The death toll includes 16 humpback whales dead so far in 2023. Those are the ones that have washed up that we know of in 2023. Let's see. 7 of them found along the Jersey Shore. This year's mortalities are on pace to break 2017's tally of 34, and we're only in May. Sherry says, I equate the windmills to clearing out thousands of trees to have huge fields of solar panels. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This drives me. Let's see. They say NOAA does not have a public tracker for toothed whales such as narwhals and beluga whales, which are also being killed. So we don't even know how many of those, because they don't even keep track of that. Now, Republicans in New Jersey, both of them, said last week they wanted a 60-day moratorium on offshore wind farm development to investigate any kind of link. So what they're saying is just stop this for 60 days and let's see if the death count, we stop the whales and tons of dolphins from washing up on the shore. Let's see if that happens. But they won't do that. And because they won't do it, that says to me that something's not right. Why not? Why not stop it for 60 days? What's the big deal? We're not coming into winter. So why not? But they won't do that. They've been given the go-ahead off the coast of both New York and New Jersey as part of the renewable energy production. And our lovely Governor Phil Murphy, that handsome devil, he's all for this. He's full in on green energy. And, I'm sure if he could, I don't think it would fly in New Jersey. They're doing it in New York. I can't imagine New Jersey, no gas stoves, and they're going after gas dryers. You're gonna have to cook over a fire in the backyard, but that probably pollutes, so you can't do that. And you have to, hang your laundries on an old-fashioned line. Remember those things you had in the backyard when you were kids? We had one. It was a square, and it got all rusty, and you had to hang your clothes over the dirty line. And then my grandparents had one that went to a post in the yard, and my grandmother just stood at the door to the back porch, and she hung the clothes up and then just fished them, and then hung them and fished them out, and then hung them, and then she'd bring them back. It's pretty cool. That's what we're going to be back to. A dirty rope, and you can put your clean clothes on it. Let's see. So this guy, Patrick Moore, says that what the Republicans want to do is the right thing. He said the acoustic pulses to scan the seabed ahead of drilling for turbines is risky for whales. The effect of the high intensity acoustic pulses is unknown, and the excavations are also muddying the waters for what will be years on end. That mud is going to take years to settle because they're drilling so far down for 900-foot wind turbines. Whales and other endangered species impacted by the acoustic pulses could be guided to their demise with possible strandings in shallow water, striking vessels, or getting entangled in fishing gear. They migrate north and south, obviously. He said, in this case, when they migrate, because they migrate on certain pathways, they appear to be swimming into a death zone. And then they talk about this big project off the coast of Virginia called Block Island Wind Farm. Oh, that's off Rhode Island. The Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project has been fully operational since 2022, but at its peak, they will have, let's see, like 100 and some odd wind turbines off the coast of Virginia. So, and Greenpeace nationalists come out and say, well, that guy Patrick Moore, no, he didn't really co-found Greenpeace, and so we don't trust him. But they're siding with the Democrats on this one. They're siding with them, going, this has nothing to do with the whales. It's boat strikes. It's this. It's that. I don't know. I'm not one of these crazy greenies, and I'm not one of these people who's out there, protect the whales or anything like that. But something's happening. And if it is man-made, then I think that, and because we don't even know if these wind turbines are going to work. How are they going to be serviced when one of them stops working? How are we? There's so many unknowns. We're just forging ahead. It's like electric vehicles. We're just plowing forward with no plan. And I don't know if that's worth what we're doing to the bottom of the ocean. God knows how many forms of life on the bottom of the ocean. We're destroying their habitats. And these whales that are endangered, I just think it's irresponsible. Like I said, I'm not a crazy greenie, but I don't know. And they're not transparent about it, and they don't even want to stop it for 60 days to prove their point. Prove your point. Prove that it's not hurting them. Don't do it for 60 days. I don't think that's a big ask. Greg, imagine what kind of funky stuff has settled into that mud over the years. That's a good point as well, because how much dumping has been done in that ocean? I know during, when was that? Gosh, they started dumping again off was it Obama's first term? But they started dumping off the coast of New York and New Jersey again, and we started getting all this garbage dumped on our beach because they weren't dumping it out far enough. So he's right. Imagine what is in the bottom of that ocean. I know they're going to just bring it all up into a toxic stew. Ron, in the recent Republican hearing, it was cited that there were no studies on thresholds for whale, et cetera, hearing damage. Yeah, there aren't any. So we're just going to find out the hard way. We'll just kill them. Bill, there are allegations that Murphy's making money on the wind turbines. Wouldn't surprise me if he is. We know that down in Virginia, Dominion Energy, they have been funneling a lot of money to Senator Tim Kaine's campaigns. He's been getting payments from them since 2011. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Murphy's making money off of it. It just wouldn't. But that's the way Washington runs. It might be maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I've just because of my job, I've just gotten really super steeped in politics, especially after being in DC for 4 years, working in the DC market for 4 years and dealing with the swamp. I don't know if it's that or it's what we now see laid bare, like what they're not trying to even hide anymore, right? Like, to me, it seems so clear what the game is. It seems so clear to me what's happening in Washington, D.C., the buying and the selling on both sides of politicians, the people who claim to be Republicans like Mitch McConnell, but who are more than happy to keep the status quo because they're lining their pockets. They're all millionaires when they walk out, but yet they just voted themselves a pay raise. They just gave themselves a pay raise. By now they can deduct housing and food and all this other stuff because they don't make enough money to be able to, have a place in Washington, D.C. They make what, $176,000 a year? You could get a nice apartment and pay rent. I did it. I had an apartment, paid rent. Now I was on the outskirts of D.C. I was in Chevy Chase, Maryland, but they could do that too, and take an Uber back and forth or a car. And, I was paying less than $2,000 a month in rent. When all was said and done, I was paying with parking and, utilities and all other stuff. I was clocking it at about $23,000, $25,000 a year. I'm making $175,000. You can do it. But I don't know. I just feel like the game has just become so transparent to me. And I don't know if it's just, again, because of that experience or if it's because with the advent of Trump, they don't hide it anymore. They're so desperate to stop what Trump unleashed that they just don't hide it anymore. And maybe that's why it's so transparent now. I don't know. You can leave your comment and tell me what you think. Let's see. Scott says, I heard whales getting driven out of another habitat, and so they're ending up more here. I don't know. I don't know where whales go. Like, I don't know what their habitat is. Like where do whales go to relax? Or because I would think like you're always swimming, like you're always moving. I don't know where they hang out. I have no idea. I guess maybe some of them go up way north. They go up to like Alaska. So I don't know where they're going. All right. I just want to tell you about a January 6th prisoner. This is out of Gateway Pundit. And the guy's name is Peter Schwartz. And this is not getting any play at all. And if you want a really interesting woman to follow on Twitter, is Julie Kelly. And she's an American flag advocate, blonde hair. And I think it's Julie_Kelly or Julie Kelly 2 on Twitter. Note there's a China link, Ron says. Where's the China link, Ron? To the wind turbine. Oh, do they manufacture the wind turbines? Maybe that's it. Maybe the Chinese manufacture the wind turbines. That may be it. Okay. So, all right. So this guy's name is Peter Schwartz. Now, Julie Kelly has a great, great Twitter profile if you're interested in January 6th and what is happening, and no one is talking about it. And what's happening is absolutely criminal. And I cannot believe it is happening in this country. But this is another one of those things that once you become mildly aware of it, you just can't unsee it anymore. So I like to share these with you. This guy's named Peter Schwartz. He's 47. He was a welder. He's a Kentucky welder. Works, so blue collar guy. Served in the Army Reserve. And he went down to Washington, D.C. to hear Trump's speech on January 6th. And he went with his wife. And he said that, I want to put this in the right order. This is written horribly. He said that he and his wife, after they went to go hear Trump, they walked up to the Capitol. And he said this is written so horribly. I hate this. I hate when they don't put it in the right order. Well, anyway, bottom line is he was indicted. Okay. His home, he was arrested on February 2nd of 21 in Uniontown, Pennsylvania. He was with his wife. 30 agents assaulted him with flashbang grenades, armored vehicles, and more than 10 assault rifles aimed at his chest because he's one of the ones being hunted for January 6th. He was indicted after he was accused of pepper spraying officers during the protests. Now, look at what's happening in New York right now, where those protesters are assaulting police officers, hitting them, physically assaulting them. One of them walked away with he was walking away limping, and he thought he broke his leg. Nothing happens to them at all. This guy was indicted for pepper spraying officers on January 6th, which is something he denies even doing. How many years do you think he got in jail? What would you say if I told you 14 years for pepper spraying an officer on January 6th? Now, he said when they came to, and they sent for that crime, 30 agents, flashbang grenades, armored vehicles, and more than 10 assault rifles aimed at the two of them. He said, at no point did either my wife or I resist, but we were both roughly handled and forced and dragged up the stairs after being shackled and handcuffed as they shoved us around. Last year, the DC jury, because it's a DC jury, and this is where you don't get a jury of your peers, and this is the problem with our system. They found him and his co-defendants guilty on every single charge. Now, if you follow Julie Kelly, and we've had her on this podcast, she'll tell you with these January 6th ones, they walk down the hall, they all vote guilty, and they come back. Like, that's it. You're just guilty. It's just a rubber stamp of guilty no matter what they charge you with. He said there were no victims for his alleged crimes. They never told him a victim that he harmed. So nobody was harmed by what he did, but they're giving him 14 years. They presented no witnesses. to his in his prosecution. Now, a lot of these people, you have to understand, can't afford a lawyer. And they know that. They know that you can't afford a lawyer. So they know that they're just going to get a rubber stamp and you're guilty, 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 guilty. That's all this is. And they're just ruining your life because they want you to go back into your community and they want you to tell people what happened to you so that they don't support Trump, that they don't go to rallies, that they don't fly their Trump flags because they're afraid. And that's what the government is doing right now. And that to me is phenomenally scary. And how people don't see that is amazing to me. How the idiots on Twitter can sit there and say things like, well, they deserve it. 14 years for pepper spraying an officer? Really? Well, must deserve it. That's what they gave him. That must be it. They found him guilty on all charges. Not one witness, and nobody was hurt. There were 11 counts against him and 2 co-defendants. He had never seen the co-defendants in his life. He never met them before they were put on trial together, the 3 of them. The jury did not even read over the evidence before they voted to sentence them. And this is what Julie Kelly has said, that they just walk down the hall and they vote guilty and they come back. It's like this. So they don't do any reading of evidence or anything like that. They just say, guilty, Trump supporter, you were in January 6th, you're guilty. He was found guilty of obstruction of an official proceeding, despite the fact that he never went into the Capitol. He never went inside the building. But they still charged him and found him guilty of trying to stop the proceeding that was happening in that building. He never went in it. He told the Gateway Pundit that juror number 8, quote, flipped him off as they read the guilty verdict against him, where he was found guilty on every single count. So the juror, that just goes to show you the animus. There was no impartiality. There was no fairness here. The juror, according to him, flipped him off as they were reading the sentence, finding him guilty on everything, on their findings. He probably didn't even have a lawyer. If he did, it was probably a public defender in Washington, D.C. who doesn't even want to take the case. On Friday, the judge, Amit Mehta, sentenced him to 14 years in prison, as I told you. This is the longest sentence of any January 6th political prisoner to date. So they're getting harsher and harsher and harsher as time goes on. He called Gateway Pundit and he spoke to them. He said, I read an article in the Huffington Post where you could see that it says that I sprayed mace. I didn't hit anybody. I was accused of throwing a chair that hit the ground safely. They said it hit the ground safely. So he didn't hit anybody with the chair that they say he threw, because he wasn't even in the building. But they're saying he was in there and he threw this chair. But they presented no, I mean, what evidence? They won't release the tapes. We know they're not showing the tapes, and they presented no witnesses. They're basing that off of what they say is and they said I have a horrible criminal record, which they don't mention the details of because they're taking stuff from 30 to 35 years ago. It's primarily traffic offenses when he was a teenager. He's 45 years old. So he was a teenager. And then he said a couple of instances along the way where I pled some things out, but 90% of it's traffic offenses, but they don't mention that. He said, look up my record. It's not criminal stuff. This has nothing to do with me doing anything wrong. He was sentenced longer than his cellmate, who was convicted of murder. And the murderer in his cell got 7 years. He got 14. Tell me how this isn't political persecution. I don't understand it. How are people not awake? How are they not seeing this? This is insane. And I feel badly for these people. How do we get them? I mean, how do we get them a fair trial? I don't know how you get them a fair trial. Let's see. He said that guy got 7 years for murder, and there's absolutely no harm to anybody from anything that I've done. Oh, here it is. Of course, they put exactly what happened at the end of this. Remember I said it was poorly written. We walked up because we went to watch a Trump speech. The speech ended at 1:15. So we walked up there. We had no idea what was going on. We didn't know there was any reason to protest because we didn't know Mike Pence had made that decision. And from where we were standing, we didn't see any police. We never saw any trespassing signs because, as we know, there's video of someone coming down and taking all the trespassing signs down and removing all of the barriers to tell people not to go onto the lawn. There's somebody who came and did that. Of course, they haven't found that person. We didn't talk to any police. We could tell there was a commotion going on up in front of us, but we weren't close enough to see what was happening. Then the cops started shooting over the crowd and hitting us, and then they shot gas behind us. And when they opened up the police line, everyone was trying to get away from the gas, and they funneled us into another area. I never entered the Capitol building. That was my main charge. That was the main charge they got him on. That's what the majority of the time came from, because they said that I disrupted Congress. But Congress was already in recess before I even came on the grounds, and I never entered the building. So it's impossible for me to have run in to obstruct Congress. So I know I went on about that, but it just makes me crazy. It makes my blood boil. And I really think it's super important that people understand that. One more thing, and then we'll go. And next week on the show, if you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please like it. I would appreciate it if you do that. Let me just go quickly to, I don't know if I can get in here. Never mind. Next week, as of right now, we will have Cal Thomas on the show. He'll be joining us next week. And then later this month, we're going to have James Rosen from Newsmax, and also Carl Higby from Newsmax as well will be joining us here on the podcast. James Rosen I love him. He's a huge like music guy, and he loves the Beatles. So there's this whole conspiracy theory about the Beatles that we're going to talk to him about. And he actually did reporting on them back in the day. So he sent me some of the articles. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So you're not going to want to miss that. And Cal Thomas has a great new book out that we're going to talk to him about, hopefully as of now, tentatively next Tuesday, that about like his life and all of his reporting and, his stories from all the things he ran into and the people he met and everything. So that'll be a fun piece as well. So that'll be a good interview. So there is a company called U.S. Private Vaults Incorporated, and they're in the LA area. And they have storage units. It's a storage company, right? And so you can store stuff there. They also have like safe deposit boxes, that kind of thing, secure storage. They were raided by the FBI 2 years ago. And I remember the story when it happened, because they were accused of allowing drug dealers to launder money through their business, according to the LA Times. So the company winds up accepting a plea bargain, and they weren't charged with any crimes, but they allowed the FBI to take $86 million in cash from various deposit boxes at their business. In other words, this is ill-gotten gains. This is here from drug dealers or from crime. And so we get to seize that, because you're not supposed to have this, because it's criminal money. It's tainted money. Well, the LA Times reported that millions of the dollars, they also got millions more in jewelry and other items that were also taken. Because some of these safe deposit boxes there have been used to further illegal activities. Great. Okay. But some of the other ones, since they seized everything, were rented by ordinary people who were just using them to store items or money or jewelry or something like that. And they took it. And they talk about this couple, Linda Martin and Reggie Wilder. They're married. And they were among some of those people who had their stuff saying, they said they didn't do anything wrong. They just chose the wrong business to put their stuff in. And they had $40,200 stored in a safe deposit box there in cash to use for the purchase of a home. They were saving up, and that's where they felt they were going to keep it safe. That's what they chose to do. The FBI seized it as part of this big seizure because there were apparently some unsavory people who also chose to keep their stuff safe with this business. They were given a notice that their money had been taken. They were given no explanation why it was taken or if it would ever be returned to them. That was 2 years ago. Now they have the Institute for Justice has filed a class action lawsuit in the hope to get the money back on behalf of numerous people who lost their valuables through no fault of their own. They were part of the criminal enterprise, but yet all their stuff was seized and they can't get it back. And the government's just pocketing it. It's insane. And people want to know why I don't trust the government. Exhibit A. No, actually, this is exhibit like Z. So the attorney for the Institute for Justice, his name is Bob Belden, and he said the government shouldn't get to take your property if it can't tell you what you did wrong. Using civil forfeiture, the government decides for itself whether to take and try to keep property, even when it doesn't suspect the owners of any crime. These two people who had the two examples here who spoke to, who is this? It's not the LA Times. I forget who this is. But they say the FBI took my savings nearly 2 years ago. It has never told me why. It's been a confusing and frustrating process from the day my money was taken. No one should have to go through this. They didn't want to buy a house. Their whole lives have been upended. Vice had spoken to another attorney with the Institute for Justice who said the FBI lied in this case when, does this sound familiar? They went to a federal judge for a warrant to take the boxes. I think we've heard this somewhere before. Lawyer Robert Frommer claimed the Bureau's plan from the beginning was a cash grab. He says the government has a duty to be honest with the court when it applies for a warrant under the Fourth Amendment. But the FBI lied about its intentions in claiming to only be interested in the property of the business, not the box holders. Ultimately, the lure of civil forfeiture turned these federal cops into robbers. Under civil forfeiture, law enforcement agencies can seize the money or belongings of anyone that they can convince a judge might have committed a crime. So you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. Civil forfeiture puts the burden of proof on those whose belongings have been taken, not the other way around. So again, they don't have to prove you did anything wrong. They just take your stuff because they get a judge, they convince a judge that they think you did something wrong. They take your stuff, and then it's up to you to prove it back. It's kind of like red flag laws with guns. Somebody reports that you threatened them or you did this or you did that. It's like when you get a temporary restraining order. You see that all the time with couples when they break up, marriage has gone bad, that type of thing. One of them, usually her, sorry ladies, but it's usually the woman goes to the police department. He threatened me. And then they slap him with a temporary restraining order, and now he's got to hire a lawyer, and it goes to court. And it's just a way of, it's used as a weapon. And you have to go and prove that these things didn't happen in order. And if they give you a permanent restraining order, then it goes on, it goes on your record. That's a big deal. Temporaries disappear. But civil forfeit, the red flag laws are the same thing. Somebody can say that, oh, they call the cops, you did this, you did that, you're a threat, or you threatened to kill yourself or threatened to kill them. They break into your house, they take your guns under the red flag laws, they take your property, and then you have to hire a lawyer, and you have to now prove that you didn't do whatever it is you've been accused of doing in order to get your property back and your right to ever own a gun again. Your literal rights back. So it's the world turned upside down, and it's happening more and more. Other former private U.S. Vault Inc. customers have expressed identical experiences, according to Forbes. And according to the Institute for Justice, the FBI used civil forfeiture to grab $1.19 billion in cash from 2017 until 2021. So they're not the only people. That's why you keep it under your mattress. Got to keep it someplace where they can't get it. It's really scary. So this has not been a good news podcast at all. I'm sorry for that. I apologize for that. But thank you for joining me. I'm going to let you go. I believe that interview is the interview tonight with Trump on CNN. I got to check. I should know this, and I'm embarrassed that I don't, but I believe that's tonight on CNN. So I'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, if anybody's heard from Al, let me know. If you have not done so, please subscribe to the podcast. Please go back and look at old episodes. You can do that on YouTube. You can do that on Apple. You can download them on Apple and Spotify. Just look for Mary Walter Radio. They should come up. I will try to get this one up tonight, ASAP, so you can download the audio, go back and watch the old episodes. Like I said, make sure you like them. And thank you so much. So we'll see you here. I will be on the Wendy Bell Show on Newsmax TV. Forgot to tell you, plug. Newsmax TV Saturday at 4:30, Saturday at 4:30, Sunday at 3:30, Saturday morning at 6 a.m. So it's the same show that they repeat. And then on Monday, I'll be on the Chris Salcedo Show on Newsmax TV, usually between 4:30 and 5 o'clock Eastern time. All right. So I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. Do appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here with me. And I will see you again on Tuesday. So have a fantastic week and a great weekend. And hopefully James will be back too. Bye.